You have to admit, there's something about drop leg holsters that kinda sorta put off this tactical vibe.
We got crews coming.
Before I go any further, it's important to understand that almost every piece of tactical equipment is your own personal preference, and drop leg holsters are no different. If you ran a drop leg holster only to find out it wasn't going to work for you, let us know about your experience in the comments and maybe you could help save somebody some money. So why do people wear drop leg holsters? The biggest and somewhat legitimate reason that I've heard is that it will allow you to draw your handgun without being impeded by your plate carrier. I've been wearing a plate carrier for about 12 years or so, and that isn't something that I've had to deal with, and I don't personally know anybody who has. That being said, if you have anything attached to your plate carrier near your holster and it's impeding your ability to draw your handgun, you should start by removing whatever that is. If your plate carrier is getting in the way of your draw, then it isn't so much a length distance problem from your hip as it is a width distance problem away from your hip. There are plenty of different spacers out there that you can install to help push your holster out a little bit further. The further you drop your holster, the more time you are potentially adding to your draw. Seeing that we don't necessarily know what position we will be starting from, it makes sense to keep our holster in a more neutral position. If for whatever reason we have our hands up, for example if we are running, it will take us slightly longer based on the distance from our hand to our holster to draw from a drop leg holster. I do realize that the difference may only be a few tenths of a second. Running brings up another disadvantage with a drop leg holster. Keep in mind that wherever you decide to wear your equipment, as long as it's familiar to you and everything is where it's supposed to be, that's really what matters. But anytime you can establish a process and consistency, it gives you something that you can rely on. When you're running with a drop leg holster, because it's attached to your leg, it goes wherever your leg goes, meaning that the position of your holster can be unpredictable. In tactics, training, or marksmanship, unpredictable always makes things a little bit more difficult. Another advantage I found to a drop leg holster is weight distribution, which I'm not really sure how that's a benefit, because if you move the holster off of your belt, now all the weight on your belt will be on the opposite side where your magazines are located. Maybe there is some benefit there if you have a pre-existing injury or for whatever reason your hip is bothering you. You should also know that the websites I got the advantages of a drop leg holster from are also selling drop leg holsters. Another advantage I found of a drop leg holster is that it may be easier to access while in a seated position. I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from, unless maybe they're talking about seated in a chair, but when I think of a seated position, I think of being seated in a vehicle where cops spend the majority of their time, and this could cause some major issues. With the drop leg holster setup, you'll see whenever I get into the vehicle, the holster is going to go wherever my leg goes, making it nearly impossible for me to draw my firearm from a seated position, and my holster is rubbing up against my center console, which in police vehicles, when the whole center console is metal and you have buttons and all these switches and all these other things going on over there, that can obviously get in the way and cause you other problems as well. The more consistent option is to not wear your holster on your leg, however you decide to do that. If length and a more neutral draw stroke is what you are looking for, there are plenty of different low ride options out there. With the low ride holster setup, I'm able to get in and out of the vehicle without my holster being impeded by any part of the vehicle itself. And as I'm driving the vehicle with my hands on the steering wheel, I'm able to draw my handgun without my handgun being impeded by any part of the vehicle. This draw is consistent whether I'm seated or I am standing. My holster is always going to be in the same spot. For examples of all the different options you have available, check out the Alien Gear holster options video I did up here. When deciding what holster you think you might need, consider exactly what you are training for. If you see someone using a piece of equipment on the range, just remember that's only one application. If you're a civilian and you wear a drop leg holster on the range on the weekends, it's really not a big deal. The likelihood of you being involved in an engagement with a gun belt on is pretty close to zero. And most people understand the tactical advantage of carrying concealed. I'm an advocate for setting up your gear and tailoring your training towards your application. A drop leg holster potentially leading to inconsistent holster locations outweighs any possible added benefits that can't otherwise be mitigated by other means. If you like this video and you appreciate the content found on this page, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified.
118, so this is my family at Lola. I can't copy. I can't tell our family at Lola. We got crews coming.